Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for today's episode of our Good Neighbor series. So today's Good Neighbor value is that good neighbors practice hospitality. And we have with us our good friends, Brandi and Anthony Jordan. Welcome, y'all.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for being here. Really glad you guys are here. So before we jump right in, why don't y'all just tell us a little bit about yourselves? Give us a little brief biography, just so we can get to know you a little bit before we get into our conversation.
So I'll start. Anthony Jordan, I've been at ICC since 2014, and my wife, Brandi, who's been at ICC since 2012, have just grown to love ICC. It's our church home. Yeah.
We have a kiddo.
Yeah, we've got a kid.
Don't forget about him.
Yeah, can't forget about him.
He's 5. His name is Nate.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. School just ended.
Yes.
So Nate is on his first expedition of the summer.
Yes. He's at his grandma's house.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for that. I do want to, so I just mentioned a second ago that our Good Neighbor value for today is that good neighbors practice hospitality. We chose you guys specifically in light of that. So just to get started, maybe just tell us kind of what does hospitality mean to you guys, and why is it particularly important to y'all, this value of hospitality?
Yeah, I guess I'd start by saying, hospitality kind of for me started when I was little. So it's kind of been ingrained in me. My parents were always hospitable to others, as well as my grandparents are always hospitable. There's always people coming in, coming over. We kind of had an open door policy. Kind of growing up, seeing that is kind of was ingrained to me. It was kind of second nature to me. So growing up, kind of just have followed suit to want to be able to offer a space for people to feel comfortable, to come, enjoy, build relationships.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah. For me, I grew up in a small town, very small town. And so everybody knew everybody and you took care of your neighbor, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of, I guess, like Mayberry, if you will. And so that was definitely ingrained in me at a young age, that you take care of the people around you.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think our neighbors are the people that we do life with, the people that are there if we need them and we want to be the same to them.
To follow up on that, I know a little bit of y'all's story, but I'd love to hear more. What has hospitality look like for y'all as a family? How do y'all practice hospitality, basically?
Yeah, so I would say for us now, we moved out, I guess you can say, to the suburbs. And when we kind of first moved out, we were the only people that lived in our subdivision. So it was kind of lonely.
Not a lot of hospitality there.
Not a lot of hospitality there at the beginning. We were kind of eager for neighbors to move in and to get to know people. Yeah. But it was, I guess you can say, just putting ourselves out there to be intentional, to get to know the people that were moving in around us, to kind of build that community of individuals, and kind of having kind of an open door, as I stated. It's a little bit of a chance because you're not going to get received in by everybody. But it was kind of important to us to move out, because we did live in the city, but move out and to build a community wherever we were.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I will say, whenever I met Anthony, he grew up in the suburbs. I intended to stay in the loop forever, right? That was, but we started talking about having a child, and because I grew up in the country and he grew up in Collierville, which was the country back then. We did look at the suburbs, and I just kept thinking, why is God pulling us to Arlington? Because it was such a strong pull, one of those things that only he can do. And we didn't know until we got out there. And then we started just following his call to build that community. And now we know why God was calling us to Arlington. So, yeah.
Yeah, could y'all give even some like practical examples of ways, like Anthony, you were kind of saying just getting to know folks, inviting them in, but what are some practical ways that y'all have learned to really bring your neighbors in and practice hospitality with them?
Yeah, I think he's pointing at me because I'm the organizer of events. If you know me, this is not a surprise. So organizing events, we'll have a crawfish boil every spring. Cool. The 4th of July, Anthony, his dad has always done a big fireworks show in his neighborhood in Nashville. So we started doing that in our neighborhood. So that's the whole neighborhood can enjoy fireworks. We have a big barbecue. In the fall, we'll do Halloween type thing, a big hayride for the kids. Christmas, we open our doors and do decorating Christmas cookies for the kids. So just organizing events and bringing people in is something that I really enjoy doing. So that's something we do. Anthony and his dad, and with the neighbors' help, built an outdoor kitchen in our backyard just so we could have people over for, the fall football games and stuff like that. We have a really big yard, let people play. One of our neighbors had a pool and they moved neighborhoods. And so there was this gap there. And so we decided that we would put a pool in our backyard because we already have the outdoor kitchen. And yes, obviously we'll enjoy a pool, but it's really more for the neighbors, honestly, so we can all come together. So, yeah.
And Anthony, you just show up for the party.
Yeah, absolutely. Like. I just show up. Luckily, she's good at all the organizing, so I just coordinate. I send out a text message here or there. Exactly.
Yes. You're gathering.
Yeah,
you're gathering. People.
Absolutely.
That's so cool. It's really cool to hear how y'all are so intentional in the choices you're making, even with projects for your home and things like that, and then looking for holidays and opportunities to gather people together. That's so cool. I'd love to hear also like. Any just stories of how God has worked as y'all have done that? Like as you've had your neighbors over, gotten people together, how has God used that?
Yeah. So I think for me, obviously at ICC, there's a lot of medical folks. I work in a medical community. And so without getting into too many specifics about people's medical issues, just he's used that in being able to help our neighbors, different families whose kids are having issues. There's at least 2 sets of neighbors who are seeing physicians that are in ICC right now. And that connection was made through us. And so I think that's been really helpful. And I've been able to be used in that way. But then also, I am a lactation consultant and a dietitian. So there's young families out there. So being able to be with them in a really kind of a hard time sometimes. After you have a kid, it's a big change. So being able to be there for them in that time as well has been great. Yeah.
So cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear almost like a networking thing that you're doing as you're seeing needs and responding to them by helping people get help or find what they need. That's so cool. Anything else that comes to mind maybe for you?
No, I think it also, it's you build those relationships with people. So it's not just, you're not just hanging out, having a good time. You build friendships with some. And so, there's, you have good conversations, you talk about sports, but then sometimes it's family issues. It's other things that you're there for, not to, provide any, judgment of them, but just to be there as kind of a sounding board, that they just need to vent to a friend. You just build friendships. And that's one thing that I'm happy to say is we've built a community of friends that we can go and talk to each other about the worst of things, or just go next door and ask someone for a cup of sugar. So it's really is a good group of friends that we've built out there for sure.
Yeah. The mental image that's coming to mind is I'm imagining y'all's home and y'all's backyard. It's like y'all are providing just space for people. But it's also space for relationships and for all the things that people bring in for y'all to meet needs and speak into things and be intentional with that space. Yeah, so cool. Yeah. So I have just a couple of other questions. I'm curious to hear. So what would you say is like the key choice you've had to make, or even a sacrifice you've had to make in order to really live hospitably? Y'all are seeking to live in obedience, to our command to practice hospitality. What is that required of y'all to really live in that? Because I know it doesn't just happen. That's what I know. We all know that.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
What is that required of y'all?
I guess, like I said, I know one is I guess a clean house per se. Like we have a lot of our house is lived in. I'll just put it like that. We're intentional to know that.
Yeah.
We go in with expectations to know that we're gonna have it lived in. We want to provide a comfortable place.
Yeah.
We don't want to put fancy couches that we don't want people to sit in or afraid to touch or break things. Like we want our house to be comfortable, welcoming. To anyone to come in into it all times. So it's not gonna be, I don't want to say over glamorous, but it's just that's something that in the front end we kind of decided, hey, this will be a house to be lived in. Like kids are gonna run up and down. We tell families all the time, treat it as it is your home. Don't come in and think that you can't, take your shoes off, or it's just, we want you to come in and feel comfortable. So that's definitely one thing. Too. Probably another thing is time. It's a lot of time, but we figured it's time well spent, to build those relationships and to have that space, for everybody to come together and kind of be, I guess you said, the beacon of the neighborhood.
Those are great.
I think money.
Yeah.
Just being practical.
I was thinking that when y'all were talking about those projects in the backyard.
So
it's an investment.
Yeah. We were trying to decide that the pool, that's a big investment, right? So we love travel. And so it was honestly a choice of do we want to use our money to fulfill what we want and do a bunch of travel, or do we want to invest this back into our neighbors and friends, with something that everyone can enjoy? And that's what we chose, was the pool. And so, money is a big investment. And then time, right? Choosing to invest time in our neighbors and the people around us, choosing when we pull in, not just closing the garage door and running inside, but if someone's out, saying hi, being intentional about those choices. And then also with money, I keep snacks for the kids. The kids love snacks, y'all. So snacks,
so do
drinks,
adults.
things like that.
Yes, so do adults.
Love snacks.
That's that backyard kitchen.
Yes,
that's what that's for.
Absolutely. So I think time and money are big ones.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I can just speak personally. I feel convicted and challenged and encouraged by y'all in that, because that is so practical, but it is a real thing. Jesus tells us to count the costs, and there are times where we have to actually do that with our time and our money, and what kind of home we want to have. Do we want to have a glamorous home, or do we want to have a home that we can use and that can be lived in? So thank y'all for sharing that. Maybe my last question would be, I'm thinking about for people who are joining our conversation, what's maybe one, or you may have two, but what's a really practical piece of advice you would give them, or just encouragement? If someone's saying, I would love to just be more hospitable, what's a step I could take? What would y'all say?
You
I can go.
You go
so
first.
I think just not being afraid of putting yourself out there, right? So you can start by waving at your neighbors if you're a little shy, just, a little wave. And then if you notice them out there, being intentional and going out there and just saying hello. You don't have to have a 30-minute conversation. If you do, great. But just saying hello and opening that door. And like Anthony said earlier, not everybody's going to receive that, and that's okay. But definitely especially if God is putting on your heart to speak to a certain person, to just follow that and be obedient in that, and just start with saying hello.
Yeah, that's great.
You took mine, but that's okay. I would kind of echo the exact same thing. That's the number one, I would say, step is just be out. Just be an extrovert. If you're a deep down introvert, be an extrovert. And I guess you can say it's endless. The opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to go beautifully. So prime example, our first neighbors who moved in, I brought them cookies because I was like, yes, we have neighbors. We're not alone here anymore. They moved in right across the cove from us. And turns out their 18-month-old had a milk allergy, an egg allergy, a peanut allergy. So like, man, that crashed and burned, right? But it was fine, but that was fine. We're now the best of friends.
Yeah.
So it's not always going to go perfectly, and that's okay.
It sounds like what you're saying is what matters is that you took the step.
Yes,
Absolutely.
What matters is that you did something.
Right.
Even when, Anthony, you're saying, like, even when it does feel costly, it doesn't feel natural even, or like it might not be the easiest thing for me, pushing yourself to take that step is what I hear y'all saying is kind of the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Well, super encouraged. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Is there anything else y'all would want to share before we wrap up?
Nothing from me.
Okay.
I don't have anything either.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank y'all for joining us, and we hope this is really helpful for you in just learning how to better love your neighbor. And we'll see you next time.